I am here in Medellin. I just landed, went through customs, got my bag, and I'm waiting for my Uber. I almost got scammed by someone claiming to be a taxi, but then I managed to get out of that, and now I'm just waiting for my Uber. And you can look at this lush greenery in the back. I am pretty excited. We're gonna head to the hotel, meet a kill there. Henry is coming later in the day, but this is the start of our Colombia trip. From the airport, it takes about an hour to get into Medellin. I really had no idea what to expect, but it was a pretty beautiful drive in with the mountains surrounding the city. And first things first, I got to our hotel, Housey Laurales. Now, the most popular neighborhood in Medellin seems to be El Poblado, but we decided to stay in the Laurales neighborhood, and we're very happy with that decision. It was a little quieter, but still very nice with restaurants, bars, grocery stores, and even a gym within walking distance. When I first came across our hotel online, I was actually skeptical because it was so inexpensive, but it had good reviews, so we booked it, and everything was great about it. We would definitely recommend if you want to stay in the area. We got a 3-bedroom apartment for 3 nights, and the total was $260 US. And as you can see, it was pretty nice. It even had a washer dryer combo machine that came in handy. The front desk was helpful and responsive leading up to the stay and during the stay via WhatsApp. The only downside was that they had these big air conditioning units in each bedroom, and they were quite loud. Day 1 was mostly a travel day, but we explored a little around our hotel for dinner and drinks. We had dinner at Mondongo's in Laurales, and I had the tostones, empanadas, and the ajiaco. Hopefully I don't offend any Colombians, but I was not super impressed with the food in Colombia. The food I had was just relatively mild flavored. The ajiaco came with all of these sides, including arepas and a banana, but basically it was a chicken soup. We then walked around to a cocktail bar, and lots of restaurants had these cool looking rooftop areas that had some great ambiance. The most interesting thing I tried here was aguardiente and goldenberry, which they called a very Colombian cocktail, and I was sold. Now, apparently aguardiente is a Colombian spirit made from sugarcane and anise. To me, it was like a less strong absinthe, and it was really good. And on to day 2. The first thing we learned is that Colombian cafes don't open as early as American cafes, but we did manage to find this cafe bakery that had some solid coffee and pastries. I got a chocolate croissant, and it was buttery, soft, and delicious with melty chocolate. Now, the first thing that we had planned today after breakfast was a tour of Comuna 13, which is the most suggested thing to do in Medellin according to basically every post I saw on the internet. Now, there's too much history about this neighborhood for me to cover, but essentially Comuna 13 was a place where migrants and refugees were forced to settle in, as they were often discriminated against and called invaders. It used to be one of the most dangerous places in the world, but over the last 30 years or so, the government has cracked down hard in eliminating the danger. And according to what we learned on the tour, while the crackdown was effective in making it a safe area, and it is now a bustling tourist hub, the ethics and morality in getting there were complicated. Now, for us, we walked around the neighborhood, and it was just so cool, as it was all built on a hillside and was built around walking from place to place rather than driving. There was so much graffiti, and it was just all really beautiful artwork. These pictures were just a couple of my favorite pieces, but there was art everywhere here. Beyond the art, as you might imagine, it used to be really difficult to move around this neighborhood since you're basically climbing a mountain. So about 15 years ago, the government invested in making this neighborhood more accessible, so they built escalators to get from level to level more easily. And the views from up top were just incredible. Now, we finished this tour up with a shoe performance by some local dancers, which was really cool. We booked this tour through Viator, and it came with some snacks along the way, including tostones, paletas, and empanadas. We had a great experience and learned a lot. Shout out our tour guide, Kevin. After the tour, we went back to Medellin for lunch at a restaurant called Fidelina, which was a recommendation from Kevin. According to one website, Fidelina was supposed to beautifully encapsulate the heartiness of paisa cuisine. It was made to be like you were entering a local grandma's house, and the restaurant was on the rooftop. It was a very unique restaurant entrance for me, and then the rooftop stuck the landing. The food was delicious, and you can never have enough empanadas in my book. I don't remember actually what these balls were, but I remember they were good. And then we got this platter to share that had a bunch of different meats and starches on it. After lunch, we decided to spend some time just walking around El Poblado, since that is one of the places that everyone recommends going to. It was a Tuesday early afternoon, so it was pretty dead, but could definitely tell that it had potential, which you will see a little later in the vlog. We went to this bar called 360 Rooftop, which was aptly named because the views were amazing here. And I got another aguardiente cocktail. This one used ginger beer. I liked it. But dinner was the real showstopper for us. We went to a restaurant called Sima, which has views unlike any restaurant I've ever been to. I think this restaurant was at the upper echelon of Colombian restaurants in terms of price, but when compared to US fine dining, this was not too bad at all. The food was delicious and the cocktails were inventive. I got a sweet and spicy coconut cocktail, which was amazing, and the presentation for everything was top-notch. We had an Asian-style pork tacos and tuna tostadas to start, and then we got chicken, steak, and fish, respectively. But I think the standout for me was actually the dessert. We had the brioche and the cheesecake foam. The brioche was dense, yet soft, and it was just so decadent with the caramel and orange gel. The cheesecake foam was such an interesting take on cheesecake, and then it had this citrus-like candy accompaniment, which had almost like a dry ice type texture. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a new experience for me. Definitely recommend going here if you're in the area. Starting off day 3, we actually began the day with a workout at a gym 5 minutes walking away, and it was a really cool gym with an impressive amount of machines. I love being able to work out on a vacation, it just makes me feel better. Then for lunch, we tried this fast food chain we kept seeing around, Frisbee. I'd compare it to a KFC, not too bad, but nothing too special, but regardless, fried chicken's always gonna hit. This was our last full day in Medellin proper, so our main plan was to go to Parque RV, which unfortunately was doomed for us. Parque RV is this large ecological reserve with all types of trails and hikes. We looked at guides on how to get there and what we needed and how to use public transportation. And this is a particularly cool park because you need to take these cable cars to get to the entrance. So we do all of that, but then we get to the final cable car station only to figure out the park is closed on Tuesdays for maintenance. So this whole journey was a fail. But I was still happy we got to go on these cable cars because I thought it was so cool that this was just public transportation that people take for their commute or whatever they needed, and something unique for Medellin and how this city is situated. We had to pivot, so we hopped on the train, which by the way was very well maintained and was coming quite often, and we headed to Pueblito Paisa. Pueblito Paisa is located on top of a hill in the middle of downtown Medellin and was built as a replica meant to represent a traditional town from old Antioquia, which is the department or region where Medellin is. I didn't take videos of the actual town for some reason, but you have to climb a bunch of stairs and then it is at the top with some cool bird's eye views of the city. In the town there is a replica school, barbershop, restaurant, and even a traditional stone fountain. This was an interesting thing to see in the middle of the city and gave some perspective on the history of Medellin. After Pueblito Paisa, we stopped at this cool coffee shop nearby, Be Minimal, and I had a brownie croissant. It had chocolate dough and a molten chocolate center. It was delicious, and I would definitely recommend that. We just relaxed for the rest of the afternoon, and then we went back to El Poblado for dinner at Carmen, which will come up on most lists you see for best restaurants in Medellin. Everything about this place felt like fine dining. The ambiance, the mood lighting, the presentation, the level of service, and especially the food. This was the best meal we ate in Colombia for sure. They gave us little amuse-bouches in between courses, which is a very nice touch. The cocktails had house-made ingredients and very clear ice, both of which are things I look for in a nice bar. To start, we got the crab empanadas and beef tostadas, both of which were good. And you'll see some biscuits here with some sour cream, which were like another little amuse-bouche, I guess. But the mains were the real star of the show here. I got the XO burger, which is unlike me because I usually get chicken dishes everywhere I go. But it was rich and delicious, and I don't regret it for 1 second. And we got this pork belly and tenderloin dish to share, and that may have been the best part of the whole meal. Henry got this duck fillet, which almost looked like a brownie, and Akil got this multi-part seafood bowl. Everyone really enjoyed their dishes and were completely full after our mains. We finished the meal off with this banana rum cocktail, and the clearest cocktail that I think I have ever seen. 10 out of 10, would recommend, and relatively reasonable prices, which wasn't too bad. After dinner, we walked around El Poblado a little bit more, and now we understood the hype. It was absolutely hopping on a Tuesday night. It would be a pretty cool place to hang out for a couple nights for sure. The street we are on here is called Provenza, I believe. There were restaurants, bars, music, and even a salsa dancing class going on. This was our last night in Medellin, so we just went home after this and started packing up to start heading to Guatape. If you're planning a trip to Medellin, everyone will tell you, and we would agree, that you should visit Guatape. It's about 2 hours away from Medellin, and we decided to book a private driver and stay one night in a hotel. Now, there are also many day trips tours that you could take through a site like Valletta or something. The drive there is pretty nice because you're going through the countryside and there are so many hills and farms, it's beautiful. We stopped at the hotel on the way, but only dropped off our luggage because it was too early to check in, and then we headed to La Piedra del Peñol. Apologies for my pronunciation throughout this video, by the way. But that means the stone of Peñol, and that's what it is. It is one big-ass rock. They've built 650 stairs into this rock, and you just have to pay around 25,000 Colombian pesos in cash, and you can climb them. The views were insane, but it is quite a workout. Yo, how we feeling after 650 steps?
Easy walk, bro. Let's do that again. Run it back.
Easy money, dog. Light work.
I'm feeling it, but we're here. We made it. These are the views from the top. It was pretty incredible to just look out and see all the different types of topography and the water and the little islands and the clouds. It felt pretty unreal. They have snacks and drinks and gift shops at the top, and there's even a little lighthouse type structure if you want to go even higher. Then you have to go down, and it can be a little bit tight and potentially a little bit slippery if it rains, but I actually thought this was some of the coolest views, being able to see out into the distance with the stairwell framing the shots. To get into downtown Guatape, you can take a taxi or you can take a tuk-tuk like us. They just had a few drivers waiting at the bottom of the rock, and you just have to give them 25,000 pesos in cash, and they'll drive you there. This was also a fun experience, just riding around stuffed in the back of a tuk-tuk, and I was glad to be able to get some good footage of what the area looks like. As you'll see, there's so much color in this area, with buildings painted in all colors of the rainbow, and something you might notice is that many houses have some specific symbol or something painted on the bottom row of their house. I don't know what they mean, but we are assuming they were a type of family emblem or something like that. We had a quick lunch at a restaurant called Don Oscar Padilla. I think it was just a highly rated spot on Google Maps that we walked by, but I really liked it. The appetizer ball things were delicious, and I had this Colombian version of fried rice, and that really hit the spot for me. It was right on the water, so we could eat while looking out at the lake. It was a very nice experience. After lunch, we went to the downtown portion of Guatape, and I think the main characteristic of this area was color. Every building was just painted with such vibrant colors. It was like walking around in a rainbow. It's really beautiful what they've done with this town. It feels very touristy, but at the same time, I think a lot of these buildings are just people's homes. So it was a cool combination of the two. They had a very small museum that we went into. It showed what the town was like before they painted everything, and also had some art from what I assume is a local artist. We really just walked around and took it all in and took lots of pictures and videos. This umbrella alley was probably my favorite area. I don't know if this is particularly social media famous, but I feel like it should be. In this section, there was a cafe that we went to, which gave us a whole coffee experience. Henry and Akil are much more into coffee than I am, but in this cafe, the owner or employee was clearly very passionate about coffee and acted like a sommelier for us, while we got this drip coffee experience. It was unlike any coffee I've ever had. It was fermented, I think, and floral. It had a lot of tea elements, in my opinion. Definitely less bitter than most coffee I've had. I got myself a flat white, and Akil got a carajillo. Everything was fantastic from here. We spent a couple hours in Guatape and then headed to our hotel for the night. This hotel was interesting. It's called the Porto Marina Guatape, and I think you would classify this as an outdoor hotel. This is the lobby, and it all looks very chic, and the whole hotel is rooted in nature. And then we move on to the room tour, and you will see that there are pros and cons to this place. The pros are that it looks cool, and I think the style and architecture really fit the aesthetic of a lakefront property. And there's a ton of natural light coming in everywhere with these big windows for at least 2 of the bedrooms. And there's a hot tub and an outdoor deck, where we did spend most of the evening on, just hanging out and looking out at the lake. Very serene. And also, the main reason we booked this place is that it was a 3-bedroom cabin at a very reasonable price, which are pretty rare around here. Now, the cons are that everything felt kind of half done. Like, even the road we came in on wasn't paved at all, so the taxi's going full off-roading on the way in and out of the hotel. I couldn't get the shower to keep a consistent temperature. The kitchenette was disconnected, which I think kind of messes with the flow. The hot tub was dirty before someone came over and swept the leaves out and washed it out. And I felt like this one singular chair on the deck was very weird. This was a theme throughout the hotel. There aren't any hallways, so the hotel is made up of separate structures that you take outdoor pebble paths to get to. This was a pretty nice experience to walk around the hotel until we had to leave and drag our suitcases on the pebbles, and that was not fun. Also, one pro of this place is that they seem to have a couple hotel dogs that were just roaming around. This little guy showed up on our deck at one point, certified good boy. They also have a small pool, which we did not take advantage of, and they advertise that they have the ability to do water sports and rent jet skis. But as you can see, the dock is a little bit lacking, so we questioned how that would work. I mentioned that I think a lot of this felt half done, but it felt like there was a lot of potential if they finished that second half. Like, this lake view is pretty incredible, and there's a view of Pablo Escobar's abandoned mansion, so that's cool. I think the restaurant was probably the worst part for me. Based on the vibes of this place, we kind of expected it to be a nice restaurant, but then we walk in and it looks like a prison yard. Again, it just felt half done. Like, the slab of concrete was just sitting here, and then they built a hotel around it and never did anything with the concrete. Also, this is where the pool is that I mentioned earlier. And all of that being said, the food wasn't bad, and I did kind of like my chicken sandwich. And also, we got a free breakfast with our stay, so that was nice. I got a breakfast sandwich with balsamic vinegar, which was new for me, and I liked it. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, I don't think, but I was satisfied. And just for the record, I'm not mad about this hotel because it was a decent price and I'm happy with that. But I guess I just mentioned all of that because I felt like it had so much potential. Anyway, that was our trip to Colombia. These are just some of my favorite pictures that I took with my Insta360 Ace Pro 2. This is my first trip with that camera and I couldn't be happy with it. I'm not sponsored, but Insta360, feel free to hit me up. Colombia was really such a beautiful place. Thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe if you want to keep up with our travels.